Today is July 16th, 2025. As we reflect on the cycles of democracy that define our nation, a fundamental question remains conspicuously absent from our primetime debates and dinner table discussions. We see the grand rallies, the helicopters ferrying leaders from one town to another, the full-page newspaper advertisements, and the endless stream of social media campaigns. We witness a spectacle of immense scale and resources, yet we seldom stop to ask the most crucial question of all: where does all this money come from? This is not a casual inquiry about party funds. It is a deep probing question about the very soul of our democracy, and whether it has been put up for sale to the highest bidder. The silence surrounding this issue is both deafening and deliberate. It serves a system that has quietly transformed the sacred act of voting into a cold, calculated business transaction. The estimated expenditure for a single general election in India now surpasses 1.2 lakh crore rupees, a staggering figure that dwarfs the official spending limits set by the Election Commission. This river of money, much of it dark and untraceable, flows into the political arena not as a donation to a cause, but as an investment seeking astronomical returns. It is an open secret that everybody knows, from the tea stall owner to the titans of industry, yet it remains shrouded in a conspiracy of silence, allowing the investors to operate with impunity. This is not just about a few corrupt individuals, it is about the institutionalization of a corrupt model. The election has become the biggest marketplace in India, where policies, resources, and the future of 1.4 billion people are traded. When a candidate spends hundreds of crores to win a single seat, we must understand that they are not doing it out of a selfless desire for public service. They are making a high-stakes investment, and like any savvy investor, they expect a handsome profit. This expectation of profit is what drives the engine of corruption, compromises governance, and ultimately betrays the trust of every single citizen who casts their vote. The failure to ask this question, to demand transparency and accountability, is our collective failure. It allows the narrative to be controlled by those who benefit from the status quo. They want us to be mesmerized by the drama of politics, the speeches, the promises, and the personalities. They do not want us to look behind the curtain and see the financial machinery at work. But if we are to salvage the promise of our democracy, we must begin by breaking this silence. We must have the courage to stand up and ask, repeatedly and relentlessly: show us the money. Who is paying for our democracy, and what are they buying in return?
Let us be brutally honest about what an Indian election has become. It is no longer just a festival of democracy. It is a meticulously planned, high-risk, high-return investment opportunity. The political arena has been converted into a stock market where the shares are constituencies and the dividends are paid out over a 5-year term through control over public funds and policy. The total investment in this game, as noted by organizations like the Association for Democratic Reforms, has reached a scale that is hard to comprehend. Imagine a business venture with an initial outlay of over 1 lakh crore rupees. This is the reality of our electoral process, a colossal enterprise designed for profit, not public service. This investment model operates on a simple, ruthless logic: spend big to win, and then use the power of the office to recover the investment many times over. The entire ecosystem, from the party high command down to the local booth worker, is structured around this financial objective. Parties are not just looking for candidates with charisma or a clean record. They are looking for candidates who can bring their own funds to the table or attract massive investments. The ability to finance one's own campaign has become the primary qualification for a party ticket, sidelining genuine leaders who may lack financial muscle but possess integrity and a vision for their constituents. The scale of this operation turns democracy on its head. When victory is determined not by the power of one's ideas, but by the depth of one's pockets, the election ceases to be a fair contest. It becomes an auction. The candidate who can distribute the most cash, liquor, or freebies, or who can run the most lavish and far-reaching campaign, gains an almost insurmountable advantage. This creates a vicious cycle where only the wealthy or those backed by the wealthy can afford to compete, ensuring that the corridors of power remain accessible only to a select, moneyed elite. The ordinary citizen, the teacher, the farmer, the small business owner is priced out of the system. Former Chief Election Commissioner S.Y. Qureshi summed up this tragic reality with chilling clarity. When elections cost 100 crore, winners must steal 500 crore to profit. We've legalized corruption. This statement is not hyperbole, it is a diagnosis of the disease that afflicts our republic. The exorbitant cost of contesting elections provides a preemptive justification for future corruption. It creates a system where honesty is a liability and financial profligacy is a prerequisite for success. The investment game ensures that the House always wins, and it is the citizen who is forced to pay the price for a game they were never invited to play. Let us break down the balance sheet of a typical high-stakes candidate for a Member of Parliament or Member of Legislative Assembly seat. The official spending limit, a figure like 95 lakhs for a Lok Sabha seat, is a laughable fiction. The real investment, according to on-the-ground reports and analysis, often ranges from 100 to 500 crore for a serious contender in a competitive constituency. This money, a mix of personal wealth, corporate funding, and undeclared cash, is spent on everything from funding rallies and paying party workers to direct cash distribution to voters. The average MP election spend is conservatively estimated at 30 crore, combining both legal and illicit funds. This is the initial capital outlay.
Now let's look at the return on this investment over a 5-year term. The returns come from both legal and illegal channels, creating a diversified portfolio of profit. Legally, an MP receives a salary, perks, and a substantial office expense fund that can amount to 45 lakhs per month. More importantly, they gain control and influence over the Members of Parliament Local Area Development Scheme funds, which can run into hundreds of crores per year for their constituency. While these funds are meant for public works, they provide immense power to direct contracts to favored businesses, often in exchange for a commission or kickback.
The real profits, however, lie in the illicit revenue streams that open up once a candidate becomes an elected representative. These are the hidden dividends that make the initial investment so lucrative. Kickbacks on government contracts are a primary source, with insiders estimating that a standard 15 to 30% commission is skimmed off the top of every public works project, from building a road to setting up a power plant. Land rezoning scams, where agricultural land is reclassified as commercial or residential for huge profits, are another common method. Furthermore, appointments to the boards of public sector undertakings and other influential bodies become tools to extend patronage and extract further financial benefits. When you add it all up, the 5-year return on investment for a successful candidate is staggering. An initial investment of 100 to 500 crore can yield returns estimated between 5,000 to over 10,000 crore. This represents a net profit of 10 to 20 times the original amount. It is a business model with a rate of return that would make even the most successful venture capitalists blush. The politician is no longer a public servant, they are the CEO of a highly profitable enterprise, and their constituency is their private fiefdom. This ledger of profit and loss explains why the competition for a ticket is so fierce and why the stakes are so incredibly high.
The candidate's investment is only one part of the equation. The other, equally significant part, involves the large corporations that fund political parties, creating a symbiotic relationship that undermines the very principle of governance for the people. Corporations don't donate to political parties out of ideological alignment or civic duty. They make strategic investments to secure favorable policies, gain access to national resources, and eliminate regulatory hurdles that might otherwise affect their bottom line. These contributions, which build the massive war chest parties use for their national campaigns, are essentially down payments for future policy payoffs. The now scrapped electoral bond scheme was a perfect example of how this opacity was institutionalized. Once a party funded by these corporate interests comes to power, the returns on this investment begin to flow. This is not done through direct cash payments, but through subtle and systemic policy manipulation. A corporation that funded the ruling party might see a tax waiver specifically tailored to its industry, saving it thousands of crores. It might win a lucrative bid for the allocation of natural resources such as coal mines or telecom spectrum on preferential terms. A single coal mine, for instance, can generate profits exceeding 50,000 crore over its 15-year lease, a phenomenal return on a few hundred crores of donations. This is crony capitalism at its most efficient and most destructive.
And this quid pro quo arrangement creates a shadow government where corporate lobbyists and executives hold more sway over policy than elected representatives or the public they're supposed to serve. Regulations designed to protect the environment, ensure labor rights, or promote fair competition can be diluted or dismantled to benefit powerful corporate sponsors. The result is a skewed economic landscape where a few large players thrive at the expense of smaller businesses and the public good. The government, instead of acting as a neutral arbiter, becomes an agent for its corporate backers, prioritizing their profits over the welfare of its citizens. This nexus is not just about corruption. It is a fundamental distortion of the policy-making process. It ensures that the laws of the land are written to favor the powerful and the well-connected. Important decisions about the nation's economic future are made not in the open chambers of Parliament, but in the closed-door meetings between politicians and their corporate financiers. This corporate capture of the state is perhaps the most dangerous consequence of the high-cost election model, as it erodes the state's ability to act in the interest of the many, instead forcing it to serve the interests of a privileged few.
In this high-stakes investment game of Indian elections, a common assumption is that only the winner takes all. However, the system is so ingeniously structured that even those who lose the election can walk away with significant financial gains.
This feature actually makes the political investment less risky than it appears, and encourages more moneyed players to enter the fray. The mechanisms for profiting without winning are varied, ensuring that the initial capital outlay is not entirely lost.
This financial safety net for losers further entrenches the power of money in politics and makes the system even more resilient to change. One of the most common ways a losing candidate profits is through land deals.
Armed with insider information about future infrastructure projects or zoning changes, information they gain due to their political connections during the campaign, candidates and their associates can acquire large parcels of land at low prices before the election. Whether they win or lose, the value of this land is likely to skyrocket once the planned projects are officially announced.
This pre-election land banking is a speculative investment that can yield enormous profits, effectively serving as a consolation prize that cushions the financial blow of an electoral defeat.
Another pathway to post-defeat profit is by leveraging the influence and network built during the campaign. A candidate who has demonstrated the ability to command a significant number of votes, even in a losing effort, becomes a valuable asset.
They can reinvent themselves as consultants or lobbyists for contractors and businesses seeking to secure government projects in the region. Their connections with the winning party and the local bureaucracy can be monetized, allowing them to act as middlemen who facilitate deals for a commission.
In this role, they're still very much a part of the system of patronage, profiting from the very governance structure they failed to officially join.
Furthermore, the corporate political nexus provides another safety net. In 2023, public sector undertaking banks wrote off an astounding 2.4 lakh crore in corporate debt. This highlights a systemic feature where the political connections of a company's backers can lead to massive financial relief.
A politician who has invested heavily and lost might be a director or have stakes in companies that subsequently benefit from such loan write-offs or restructuring deals facilitated by the party they supported. This ensures that the investment made in the party, if not the personal campaign, still pays dividends, reinforcing the idea that in the business of politics, you don't always have to win to win.
When we place India's system of political finance against that of other mature democracies, the contrast is honestly stark and deeply troubling. While no country has a perfect system, nations like the United Kingdom, Germany, and Canada have implemented robust checks and balances to curb the influence of money in politics. These measures really highlight just how far India has to go in cleaning up its electoral process. In the United Kingdom, for instance, there's a strict election spending cap of around 8.5 crore rupees per constituency. This is a realistic and enforced limit, a far cry from India's official caps, which, let's be honest, are openly flouted without consequence. The UK also has stringent anti-lobbying laws to prevent corporate interests from unduly influencing policy. Germany offers another powerful model that India could learn from. Its system relies heavily on state funding for political parties, which reduces their dependence on private and corporate donations. There are strict limits on how much an individual or corporation can donate, and transparency is, absolutely paramount. Crucially, Germany has a cooling-off period, imposing a 5-year ban on ministers and high-ranking officials from taking up corporate jobs in sectors they once regulated. This simple rule helps prevent politicians from making decisions in office that are designed to secure a lucrative private sector job after their term ends, a practice that is unfortunately rampant in India. Canada takes enforcement to another level with its system of real-time spending audits. Political parties and candidates must report their expenses as they are incurred, allowing for immediate scrutiny and public transparency. This proactive approach prevents the accumulation of massive undeclared expenditures. Furthermore, the penalties for non-compliance are, severe. If a politician is found to have falsified their election affidavits, the state can claw back up to 90% of their salary. This creates a powerful financial disincentive for dishonesty, making the potential rewards of cheating far less attractive than the risks. In stark contrast, India's system is characterized by a lack of effective spending enforcement, a complete absence of post-office employment bans for politicians, and a culture of opacity surrounding public contracts. Our laws exist on paper, but are rarely implemented with the political will required to make them effective. The result is a free-for-all where money power reigns supreme. While other democracies have recognized the corrosive effect of money on politics and have taken concrete steps to mitigate it, India continues to allow its democratic processes to be hijacked by a system of high-stakes investment and guaranteed returns, leaving the ordinary citizen powerless.
While politicians and corporations calculate their return on investment, the real cost of this billion-dollar election game is paid by the ordinary citizens of India. Every crore of black money funneled into an election campaign, and every crore of public funds stolen to recover that investment is a crore taken away from essential public services. This is not an abstract economic concept. It is a lived reality for the bottom 90% of the population who rely on the state for their basic needs. The pyramid scheme of electoral politics, which enriches the 1% at the top, is built on a foundation of public deprivation and suffering. Look at our healthcare system. According to recent reports, our public hospitals face a staggering funding shortage of 18,000 crore rupees. This number translates into hospitals without enough doctors, beds, or life-saving medicines. It means a pregnant woman in a remote village might not have access to a functional primary health center. It means a daily wage laborer with a serious illness is forced to choose between crippling debt at a private hospital or no treatment at all. The money that could have built these hospitals and hired these doctors is instead circulating in the election economy, buying votes and securing power for the very people who are meant to be our guardians. The same story repeats in our education sector. There is a reported 50% vacancy rate for teachers in our primary schools. This means millions of children, the future of our nation, are sitting in classrooms without a teacher to guide them. It means broken benches, leaking roofs, and a lack of basic facilities like toilets. The funds meant for Operation Blackboard, for improving school infrastructure, and for paying teachers a decent salary are siphoned off to finance the political ambitions of a few. An uneducated populace is easier to manipulate with populist slogans and empty promises, making the underfunding of education a cynically strategic move in this political game. And what about our infrastructure? We hear grand announcements of new highways and smart cities, yet data shows that infrastructure projects worth a colossal 40 lakh crore rupees are stalled or pending across the country. These are not just numbers on a spreadsheet. These are roads that could connect villages to markets, irrigation canals that could save crops from drought, and power plants that could light up homes. When kickbacks and commissions become the primary motive for sanctioning projects, efficiency and public need take a back seat. The result is a landscape of half-finished projects and broken promises, a testament to a system where private profit has triumphed over public progress.
To break this vicious cycle of money and power, we do not need more committees or half-hearted promises. We need bold, decisive and structural reforms that attack the problem at its root. The solutions are not complicated, but they require immense political will and citizen pressure. We can build a new framework for our democracy on 4 strong pillars: severe punishment for financial fraud, a permanent ban on corrupt actors, a firewall between public office and private profit, and radical transparency through citizen oversight. These are not radical ideas, they are essential measures to reclaim our republic from the clutches of the investment-driven political class.
First, we must make illegal election spending a high-risk, low-reward activity. Let us adopt a model inspired by Singapore's tough anti-corruption laws. Any candidate found to have undeclared election spending should face confiscation of assets equivalent to 300% of the undeclared amount. This is not just a fine, it is a punitive measure designed to bankrupt those who try to buy an election. Furthermore, violating spending limits must not be treated as a minor electoral infraction, but as a serious criminal offense, leading to mandatory jail time. When the punishment for cheating outweighs the potential reward, the incentive to cheat will diminish. Second, the penalty for corruption must be a lifetime ban from public life. A politician who has been convicted of corruption or has been found to have violated electoral laws should be permanently barred from contesting any election and holding any public office. Currently, politicians often serve a brief sentence or a short ban, only to return to politics with their illicitly acquired wealth intact. A lifetime ban sends a clear message. The privilege of public service is forfeited forever if you betray the public's trust. This will help cleanse the system of repeat offenders and create space for a new generation of honest leaders. Third, we must build an unbreakable wall between public office and personal enrichment through government contracts. A simple, powerful rule should be enacted. No elected official, be it an MLA or an MP, nor their immediate family members or their linked corporate entities, should be allowed to bid for any government tender for a period of 10 years after their term ends. This contract blackout would sever the direct link between holding power and profiting from public projects, eliminating the most significant source of illicit income for politicians and forcing them to focus on governance rather than self-enrichment.
We must stop thinking of electoral fraud and political corruption as ordinary crimes. They are not. They are a crime against the very idea of India, a betrayal of the sacrifices made by generations who fought for a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. When an election is bought and sold, it is not just a law that is broken, it is the future of our nation that is stolen. The money that should be building a hospital for a sick child, a school for a bright mind, or a road for a struggling farmer is instead used to perpetuate a system that keeps them in a state of perpetual dependency. This is an act of treason against the citizens of this country. The current model of electoral politics is unsustainable. It hollows out our democratic institutions from within, leaving behind an empty shell that goes through the motions of elections while the real power resides with a nexus of moneyed politicians and their corporate financiers. It fosters a culture of cynicism and despair among citizens who begin to believe that their vote does not matter and that all politicians are the same. This erosion of public faith is perhaps the most profound damage of all, as a democracy cannot survive without the active and hopeful participation of its people. We are at a tipping point where we must either fight to reclaim our democracy or resign ourselves to living in an oligarchy masquerading as one.
The final pillar of reform, therefore, must be the empowerment of the citizen. We need to implement systems of radical transparency and social audit. Let us institutionalize a model similar to Kerala's Janakiya Aparatha Vedi, or People's Vigilance Forum, across the country, empowering local NGOs and citizen groups to officially inspect and audit the usage of all MLA and MP funds. Every single rupee of public money spent must be accounted for, not in thick files hidden in government offices, but on a public dashboard accessible to every citizen with a mobile phone. When the people become the auditors, the scope for corruption shrinks dramatically.
The fight to reclaim our democracy will not be easy. The beneficiaries of this corrupt system are powerful and they will resist any attempt at change. But the power of 1.4 billion people, once awakened and united, is far greater. We must start by changing the conversation, by demanding accountability, and by supporting leaders who champion these reforms. We must treat our vote not as a commodity to be sold, but as a sacred weapon to be wielded. The time has come to declare that our democracy is not for sale. It is our collective inheritance, and we must fight to protect it as if our lives depend on it, because they do.